Alright guys, welcome to Planet Geography. Today we are tackling floodplains and levees. So let's start off just by defining what they are. So a floodplain, if you take a look at this image, is an area of flat land adjacent to or parallel to our river that naturally obviously floods. And then our levees are larger, elevated sections of our riverbanks that are higher than our floodplains. So we're going to look at how they are created and how they are very much linked to rivers. So let's just start by labeling off our diagram. This is a cross section of our river. I hope that's obvious. We have our levees and we have our floodplains. So first things first, our river in the lower course, which is where these are both found, is containing and transporting lots and lots of sediment. The sediment is all different shapes and sizes. The 4 different types of transportation, which I hope you know are taking place as we look at this. All right. Now, also, I hope you know the discharge in our river changes. This is often, but not always, linked to precipitation, okay? So let's say there is a storm, the average discharge is going to fluctuate and it's going to increase, okay? We're going to get to a point where it reaches bank full. This is the moment the river can't take any more precipitation or discharge. If we increase or there is further precipitation, what's going to happen is we are going to have a flood. The flood goes over the levees and onto our floodplains, okay? So the next thing you need to be aware of is that when it floods, all of that sediment that was in the river is now being transported onto our floodplains. But remember, floods aren't moving bodies of water. They kind of tend to flood an area of flat land and then just sit there. They're stagnant, if we use our key language. And we know that when water loses energy, it starts to deposit. Very fine bits, maybe kind of sand of sediment, are deposited furthest away from the river. And as you get closer, the size of the sediment increases. When you get to the levees, you start to get maybe some small boulders or bigger pieces of material, okay? And this is happening on both sides. I won't draw it on both sides, but it's happening on both sides. So that's the process, okay? It's very essential to flooding and sediment and transportation and bankfall. And then what are the effects? So let's start by looking at the effects on the floodplains. Well, on the floodplain, what this means is this sediment is full of nutrients. So if you can link it to the nutrient cycle, nutrients are great for plants. And so what you find is the soil tends to be very, very fertile, okay? So it tends to be they are flat, fertile lands. And this attracts a lot of humans and makes them often very densely populated areas. They're easy to build on because they are so flat, and they're very easy to live on because they produce huge amounts of food, which can make farmers lots of money. As a result, there are many examples of cities that are built on floodplains. London, famous British example, Paris. If you go to America, it's New Orleans. If we go to Asia, it's Bangkok, it's Saigon in Vietnam. Many, countless civilizations and settlements are built on floodplains, okay? And that is because of the deposition of sediment, making it fertile. Well, what about our levees? So that's our floodplains. Well, now let's focus in on our levees. Okay, well, why are they so elevated above the floodplains? Well, as you can see, you've probably surmised and worked out that those big pieces of sediment are being added to our levees, and so they grow over time, okay? They're being added to every time there's a flood. And it causes them to grow. It causes them to elevate above the floodplain. And so what you see is, you come back in 100 years, it is going to grow and grow over time, okay? And that's what happens. As they grow, the amount of discharge the river can hold increases as well, okay? So that's kind of where we are, and that's kind of the end of the process. I hope you found that useful. Just know that the real keys are that discharge, bankfall, sediment is then transported and then deposited. The bigger bits are found in the levees and the embankments, whilst the further bits are found further out to the floodplains. All right, we're now going to jump into an exam question and look at how this actually works out in an exam. Stay tuned for that. If not, like and subscribe for future videos that I'll be making very soon. Let's look at a question from the Edexcel Geography A paper 2019. Nice simple question today, just a 2-marker. So we're going to bug the question as we always do. Box the command word, underline the keywords and glance at the marks. Box is explain, so we're going to need that connected because. One way is nice, so you can't just list 2 ways. Deposition, formation, levees, and we glance at the marks, okay? So it lets us know that we're going to get a point, a mark for our point and a mark for our extension. So here is the mark scheme. Every examiner will have this in front of them whilst they're marking your work. So take a second to pause the video, have a read of what would get you marks. Okay, so nothing scary. Let's just look at this. Generally with mark schemes, they tend to be the most common answers at the top, and they become slightly more niche as you go down. Levees are formed when a river is in flood. The load is deposited along the river banks as the river slows down. Nice. Talking about the kind of sediment load, it's quite good. And so on. Levees are formed when a river bursts its banks, flooding, deposits sediment along the river. That, for me, that's much easier. We can see it still picks up 100%. All right. So let's look at the example. So this is the structure I'll be encouraging you to use. One blank is because, again, where possible, always fill that blank in with words from the question. If you read that question, you should see that one way is because. So one way is when a river floods. That's got my mark, okay? We literally picked up a mark in 6 words, basically. Yep, that's our point. Because we need to say, well, why does the flood cause it to form a levee? That's the explanation, really. Because sediment being transported is deposited along the bank of the river. Now, again, an examiner is going to skim read your work, and then their eyes are going to light up when they see that tier 3 language, that geography language in your writing. So, transported, deposited, bank. Okay, that's enough to get that to be awarded that final mark. And again, we see 2 marks in 1 sentence. Really easy question if you know your geography, if you've done your revision. Otherwise, you've got no chance. All right, I hope you found that useful. For me, that gets 100%. I hope you would get the same in your exam. And like and subscribe because I'll be pumping out more videos as we move forward.